own and loan on the same asset and make far more money. In this educational episode, I'm going to address the question, how can I double dip? And people are usually saying, like you do, Doug, on my rental properties. So get ready. I hope you'll gain insights into some opportunities that maybe you did not know existed before. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been helping people optimize assets and minimize taxes now for nearly 5 decades. And so I've had the opportunity to teach thousands of people, especially real estate investors, who own a lot of non-owner occupied rental income properties, duplexes, fourplexes, even, huge multi-apartment complexes containing 80 units, 200 units, 300 units, okay? It all applies, and it even applies to commercial property and rentals. So when people ask me, Doug, how do I double dip like you do? Well, I'm going to make this super simple and share with you that I always want to maintain liquidity, the ability to access my money in case of an emergency or maybe vacancies or the real estate market plummets, which it does. I want to have safety of my principal in case my real estate values go down, which they'll do occasionally, just like the stock market that goes through, the roller coaster rides. And I also want to earn a predictable rate of return regardless of whether it is rented out, whether it's vacant or full, okay? So how do you do that? I find that a lot of real estate investors, well-intending, they buy rental properties, and many of them are doing 1031 exchanges from former properties, and they take all of the proceeds from the former rental property and they put it into a huge down payment comprising 30, 40, 50, 60%, or maybe they pay cash, but in a 1031 exchange, you're wanting to postpone paying the capital gain tax, okay? And so you have to buy a property of equal or greater value. Well, the biggest problem I see is when you think in a 1031 that you have to take all of your equity from the former property and put it in a new one. The government's never said that. You simply have to buy a property of equal or a greater value. And so I have always paid the least amount down. In fact, to be honest with you, I've never paid a down payment on any real estate I've acquired out of my own pocket. I've satisfied down payments, but not with my own money. That's another topic, but I would pay the least amount down and keep the rest of that money liquid and safe. Now, you don't want to leverage where you're taking and paying 20% down. If you got $1 million out of a previous property and you're buying another $1 million property, you use $200,000 if it requires 20% down with whoever you're financing it through. You don't take the other $800,000 and then leverage and get 5 properties necessarily to where you now have $200,000 down in each of those properties because now you have no liquidity. If you get into trouble, there's only one way to get the equity of that property, that $200,000 you put into 5 properties, and that's to sell it or borrow on it. And sometimes when you need it the worst, it's the hardest to get. You don't qualify. Because they loan you money based on your ability to repay. And if you lack the cash flow or the ability to repay, they'll say fat chance. Or in a soft real estate market, many times the value of those properties drop at least 20%. And so you can't sell and get your money back because you lost it because you tied it up in the property. Is this making some sense? And so I've always kept my real estate equity separated. And as it continues to increase in value or appreciate, I personally keep refinancing my rental properties to get that lazy idle equity out in a position of liquidity, safety, and earning a predictable rate of return. But I've been able to earn a rate of return usually of 3 times the net cost of the mortgage. And this is how I double dip. So let me give you an example right now. Several years ago, I had a client, and he was 70 and a half years old, and he was being forced to take RMDs, required minimum distributions, out of his IRAs or 401ks. And he didn't like paying the tax, even though if he took out the small amount that his advisor told him under the 4% rule, it wasn't that much. And I was telling him, no, you want to get $150,000 a year out of those IRAs and 401ks, not the required minimum of $24,000, and get the taxes over and done with. But I could offset 100% of 50 grand of tax every year on those $150,000 distributions out of your IRAs or 401ks. He didn't need the money, but I said, get it out and get the taxes over and done with, but I can offset the tax on those in your situation. Why? Because he owned several rental properties, duplexes and fourplexes. And he was doing what a lot of real estate investors do. They get this positive cash flow. They're frugal. They don't need that much to live on. And so they take all the positive cash flow and they send huge principal payments against the mortgages to hurry and get the rental property free and clear, thinking that's the way to go. But no liquidity if they really need it, because every time they're sending it to the mortgage, it's like, here, Mr. Mortgage Banker, is an extra $1,000 on this mortgage. Don't pay me any interest on that. If I need that money back, I'll borrow it back on your terms and prove there's a need why I should have it. And again, then they have this rude awakening when they need it the worst, it's the hardest to get. So we went out and refinanced several of his properties, and he could take out with his credit $1 million loans on so many properties. So I'll just use this as an example. Every property that he refinanced with $1 million of mortgage, that then he could get that equity out that was sitting in the property, idle, dormant, doing nothing. The property is going to appreciate or depreciate regardless of how much equity is in there. See, homes and real estate go up and down in value regardless of how much equity's in there, okay? They could be mortgaged to the hilt or free and clear. And a lot of real estate people don't stop to think about that. So we went out and refinanced each of these properties for $1 million. So far, so good. So now he has $1 million out of the property that's liquid and safe. Where do we keep it liquid and safe? Well, I advised him to put it where I put my serious cash for liquidity and safety, and that's in a laser fund. Now, at the end of this episode, I'm going to gift you a copy of this book if this is intriguing you. But the laser fund is an acronym, LASER, that stands for Liquid Asset Safely Earning Returns. And what is it? It is a property structured, maximum funded, indexed universal life insurance contract. When it's structured correctly, I've been able to earn rates of return averaging 11.17 tax-free, netting 10.07 cash on cash, after all costs, fees of the insurance that the IRS says has to be there in order for it to be tax-free, okay? So I'm able to earn 10%, but ever since 1980, before the emergence, 17 years before the emergence of indexed universal life, just universal life was introduced by E.F. Hutton for living benefits, for capital accumulation, for working capital, for things like this. And so ever since 1980, my average has been 9.62. Now, if you understand rule of 72, let's just round it down to 9.6 divided into the rule of 72, your money will double every 7.5 years. Well, see, if you are owning real estate and it's appreciating at 5% a year, it's going to double in 14.4 years. If it appreciates at 7.2%, which most of my properties have averaged around 7.2, it'll double every 10 years. So as my rental properties keep increasing in value, I keep refinancing and keeping the equity separated, not to over leverage, because leverage without liquidity is stupidity. You want to stay liquid. So he took that $1 million on each of these and he put them into laser funds, okay? Max funded insurance contracts. Well, what happened? The mortgages were at 4.5% at the time. And of course, that's tax deductible because it's a rental property. So he's paying $45,000 in interest on those mortgages. So far, so good. And I think a lot of them at the time were interest-only mortgages. So this makes it simple. So he has that much of a deduction for each one of these properties. And he was in a 33% tax bracket. So when he writes off $45,000, that offsets $45,000 of income. Okay. So he could take out $45,000 out of his $600,000 IRA 401k portfolio with no tax consequence. Did you hear that? Okay. Because he pulls out 45 and it's offset by 45 in deductions. So we only had to refinance 4 properties to easily cover the 150,000 plus that he was pulling out of his IRAs or 401ks every year, because the interest deduction, the new interest deductions that we resurrected, were offsetting all of the IRA 401k taxable income. But he was double dipping. We not only got about, at the end of the day, a total of $750,000 out of his IRAs or 401ks with no tax consequence because of this strategy. He goes, Doug, this is incredible. I'm making so much money now, I don't know what to do with it all. Well, what he's talking about is 4.5% tax deductible interest payment, okay, is really a net of $30,000 because he saved $15,000 in actual tax on his otherwise payable taxes in a form of a refund or whatever. So when you borrow money at 4.5 in a 33% bracket, it's 3. If you borrow at 6, it's a net of 4. If you borrow at 9, it's a net of 6. If you borrow at 3, like I've done many years, it's a net of 2. And what was he earning in his laser funds? Well, I'm going to round it down just to 9%, okay? He was actually earning 10% most of the time, but let's just say 9. So just the very first year before this starts compounding, which is going to keep getting bigger and bigger, he is earning 9% or $90,000 tax-free. And if you don't understand why it's tax-free, that's why you need to read the book. How much more is $90,000 than the net cost of the funds on the mortgages of $30,000? Don't say 60, it's 3 times, okay? It's 300% more. He was becoming his own banker. In other words, instead of sending it against the mortgages, because then all he experiences is positive cash flow and his equity is sitting there doing nothing. He freed that up to earn 300%, okay, 3 times more than the cost of the mortgage. And yes, he has a higher mortgage payment, but his rental income was far greater than that. He still had positive cash flow on the rental properties. But this sent his cash flow or his growth through the roof. Not only was he benefiting from the properties that appreciate over time and also on the positive cash flow on the rental, but he freed up millions of dollars and made 300%, 3 times more than the cost of the mortgage. This is what banks do. They borrow our money, and pay us 1 or 2%, and they turn around and they make 5-6%. They make 300%. They pay you 2%, and they turn around and loan it back at 6%. This is just how money works. So if this is intriguing you and you want to learn more about it, I want to gift you a copy of my 300-page book, The Laser Fund. This is my 11th book. It's been flying off of our warehouse shelves. You can go to Amazon and pay $20 plus another, $9 or $10 for shipping and handling. If you do that, thank you. But I'll gift you a copy if you'll just cover the shipping and handling. If you go to laserfund.com, laserfund.com, you click on the link below, and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I require some skin in the game, and I'll pay for the book and fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. And then while you're in there, check out if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn. There's audio and video formats. We teach educational webinars on a regular basis. And you can even schedule an appointment to talk to one of our IUL specialists to see how a laser fund may benefit you in your particular set of circumstances. But this is actually 2 books in one. This side is for left brain thinkers, charts, graphs, and explanations. This side is for the right brain learner. It has 62 actual client stories. And many of those stories are about people that own rental properties and how they double dip.